Window that has people's faces.
Yeah, I see
that. Okay.
I see my face in it and your face in it.
Okay. If you take your mouse and hover at the top of that window, there should be 4 little icons. One is just a flat line. One's about a half of a box.
Yeah, I got it now. Found that.
So the one on the right that is about 9 boxes or 9 little dots, if you click on that.
I've got it.
Okay. And
now
then
scrolling up and down.
Yeah. And then on the window, if you take your mouse and hover down on the bottom corners, you'll get about 3 little slanted lines.
Got it.
And your mouse will change. If you hold your left button down and then drag your mouse, it will resize that window.
Perfect. Got it.
And Barry, we can see your new picture. That's a good one.
Molly, I am hearing that the audio is not working on the stream. If you can hear me. Okay. Yes, I'm told it's working now. Thanks.
And then will we be able to see George C, or is he just on audio?
No, my camera is on, and I don't know why I'm in black. Maybe that's the commentary appropriately.
I think if you go down to the left, the bottom left, you might have to click on your video camera. Your video might be off.
Bottom left.
It should say, I think, start video.
Yeah, if you move your mouse all the way down to the bottom of the screen of your monitor, it'll pop up a little ribbon along the bottom where the mute button is, right next to that.
Where it says stop video. Yeah, I just got it. I couldn't see that before. The stop video.
If it says stop, then it means you've got yours on. So you're right. I don't know why.
Huh.
Hey,
Now it
this
says
is
start. I clicked it on and I've got it turned on. The light's on up there where the camera is.
looks like we're having some issues. I couldn't get in, so I called. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Do I need to try to go in the other way, or is this okay? It's very staticky right now on my end.
Yeah, we're getting a little static on our end too.
If you go right, I had trouble with the link, so I went right into zoom.com and then just entered the 817 number to join a meeting. Chairman Summers, I don't know if you want to try that.
I will try that.
That's what I did too, Tracy.
Yeah, I had trouble with the link.
So
Not earlier.
what was happening with the link?
George, we can
Where's
see
There we
you.
go. Okay, I've been fiddling around here. I got it now.
Oh, there he is.
In all my
Jerry, I
glory.
love that flag behind you.
Can anybody cut hair?
Oh,
I'm going for a
I'll cut
mullet.
yours if you'll color my roots.
Yeah.
Okay, I can do that now.
I'm going for a mullet.
That requires
Okay,
cutting
Mike,
in the
see,
front
that's
though,
that one.
Jim.
What'd you say, Jeremy?
That requires cutting in the front though.
I know. Either that or the cousin it look, maybe just hide the whole face.
So
we good now?
We can
Yes,
see
are we
you.
good? Yeah, are we
There we
good?
go. Yeah.
I don't know if we're
You
missing,
know, we're missing Susan Reber and Eddie Jacobs.
and Phil is Moffett. Is he
Phil
here?
is
He's
here.
on.
He's on there someplace.
Oh, I didn't see it. He's not on my. I thought I had mine
I'm here.
expanded largely enough.
There he
you
is.
are. Hey, Phil.
Yeah, so Susan Reber and Eddie Jacobs are the only ones that we're missing, according to my script. We do have a quorum.
We do have a quorum.
Okay, I want to, can we get this, can we just start then, and then if they come in, we can recognize them?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So we
And
do
the
have
press-
we do have a quorum, and the press has been notified.
So everybody has the minutes from the last meeting on February 27th?
Yes.
If there is nothing that needs to be changed, there a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved by, is there a second?
Winston,
Joe
Second.
Moffett seconds.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor?
We'll
Any
need Katie and Jerry and Phil to turn their audio on.
It is on.
Mr. Yates, I think your audio is off. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so Winston Miller, you did the first, and then Gail, you did the second?
Well, I think it was a mix-up between me and Phil. It doesn't matter.
Okay,
Got it?
Doesn't matter.
all right, thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say I heard Phil, and if you all would do what he did, he said second and then said his name,
Okay,
or say your name first, and then when you make the motion, Phil, that was great, is a good example. So if you all would do that, it'll help Tracy a lot in collecting that for the future minutes.
great, thank you.
Thank you. Now, did we have any opposed? So the motion did carry. Now, moving right along, what was it? Was it the informational items next?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just usually we do informational items at the end, but it felt weird to not talk about some of the things that are going on at the beginning of the meeting. So graciously, the chairman allowed us to move that. I just wanted to give you all an update. Of course, as you look at the agenda, you'll see that there's nothing pension related on there. It seems like a million years ago when we scheduled this meeting on April 24th so that we could make the decision on the pension before next week. But I just wanted to give you the final update that is final now. The governor signed Senate Bill 249 and then in House Bill 352, which is the executive branch budget, there was the actual language in there that established our pay-in rate at 49 cents. So it is final that the pension decision has been moved, and that whole time frame will move to next year. So the board next year by April 30th, 2021 will need to make the decision about the pension. So luckily we've already done most of the work along those lines. We'll coordinate with you all as we get to the probably 2021 about having a few extra meetings, getting the pension committee back together, and we'll just look to deal with that next spring. For the COVID-19 response update, I wanted to just give you a little information about what we're doing here corporately. The majority of our staff is working from home, probably about 10%. We have around 220 to 225 people, and we have about 20 to 25 who are regularly coming in the office. Some people are here full time, but everyone is in an office with a closed door, and we're cleaning doorknobs and doing all those type of things. And then everyone else is working remotely. Sometimes people will come in for a couple hours to get the mail, to scan documents, that type of thing. But we feel like we are able to continue both for business continuity and staff safety. This is working well for us now. So we've let staff know that as of now, of course, it seems like all coronavirus or COVID-19 planning changes every week or two. But as of right now, we're planning to continue working as we are, with the majority of staff working remotely through the end of May. But of course, we'll be prepared to reevaluate that should we need to prior to then. And then by way of the CARES Act funding, I just wanted to give you a little update on that. Kentucky Housing Corporation will receive approximately $9 million in additional funds under the CARES Act, which we plan to deploy for rental assistance to help keep people housed and avoid evictions. We're planning now, so that planning is underway on how exactly we will deploy this additional resource across Kentucky. We're also looking at whether some of the existing funding we have that we had already been appropriated under existing grant programs might be able to be used also. Specifically, we are going to receive $8,877,469 in additional emergency solutions grant for ESG funds. Those funds come from HUD, and the specific purpose of that funding is to assist persons experiencing or at risk of homelessness. So it's a good fit for being able to eventually provide some at least short-term rental assistance to help keep people housed. We expect to receive that funding sometime in May, and then we'll look to deploy it as quickly as possible, likely then in late May or early June. Currently, we are waiting on HUD's grant agreement for those funds and some regulatory clarifications from them. But in the meantime, we're getting prepared on what the deployment might look like. We're going to get approximately additional $129,762 in housing opportunities for persons with AIDS funding or HOPWA funds. Again, this is an existing HUD grant program where we already receive funds that we then administer to agencies that provide housing and other services for persons with HIV or AIDS. So that additional approximately $130,000 will come down, we think, in early May. We'll be able to deploy those to the agencies that we're currently working with to get those funds out and of service. We are waiting on HUD for a grant agreement for those funds now. So that's sort of the funding that we're going to get from CARES Act. We are coordinating with the governor's office and the task force the governor has put together for CARES Act funding. So we do calls approximately about a week, just letting them know what we're doing and what the process we think will look like. We're also coordinating with other state agencies. So again, we are with the CARES Act funding, but also with other homeless providers and emergency management to try to see how we can help and be a part of the solutions that will be coming forth from those programs. Federal agencies are rolling out multiple opportunities for regulatory waivers on many of the federal programs that we administer. So we have analyzed those and we're applying for all that are appropriate and relevant to our programs. And we're actually getting very quick responses from HUD on those regulatory waivers. So that's been very helpful. So that's really quick thumbnail overview, but I just wanted you to know that we are getting that CARES Act funding and what it is that we're planning to do with it. We'll be able to provide a more detailed overview of that at the May board meeting, but I wanted to just let you know what we had now. And before I go forward, does anyone have any questions on any of those? Seeing none, I will do the last one, and she will kill me for this, but I just wanted to point out to everyone that if you will, at some point, today is Tracy's birthday. And so I know, Tracy, I knew you rolled your eyes.
Happy birthday.
Could not say it.
Birthday.
They're not any fun anymore.
Well, I was going to say, since celebrating occasions is not fun in this environment, I just thought we could add a little sunshine to your day by everyone wishing you happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Tracy.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, I turn it back over to you.
You're muted, Chairman.
You turn your audio. There you
Thank
go.
you. I'm sorry. I don't want you to hear the dogs barking. Thanks for the update, Lisa, and happy birthday, Tracy.
Thank you, Chairman Summers.
Jeremy, what's next on the agenda?
Yes, so the next item on the agenda, Chairman, is that we need to have the board elect a vice chair for the board. Our previous vice chair was the Secretary of Finance under the previous administration, and having that person leave office, and we now have a new Secretary of Finance, it's necessary to elect a new chair. Just for the board's edification, since we are administratively attached to the Finance Cabinet, historically, that role has been filled by the Secretary of Finance. But at this time, I believe it is appropriate, Chairman, that we open the floor for a motion to nominate someone for that role in a second, and then have the board vote.
Yes, and I think since my tenure as chair, I mean, we've had Secretary Flannery under Governor Beshear, and like I said, Secretary Landrum under Governor Bevin, and I just think it's a good practice to continue that. So is there a motion out there?
So moved. Gail Lively.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Is there a second?
Jerry Yates, second.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Winston, we look forward to your leadership, and thank you for your willingness to serve as the proxy for Secretary.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the support of the fellow board members, and I'll attempt to do my very best to do what needs to be done.
Well, I'm sure you will. Moving right along.
So the next item, Chairman, is a report on the executive committee that was held last month on March 30th.
Yes, sir, Jeremy.
I believe you have limited viewing, so if you'd prefer, I'm happy to provide that report.
Please.
Okay, so the executive committee of the board did meet on March 30th of this year at 2 p.m. That meeting was also conducted via Zoom. During the course of that meeting, Tracy Thurston, Managing Director of Multifamily Programs, provided an overview of the awards of the 2020 low-income housing tax credits that were made in January of 2020. Following that presentation, she presented the 2021-2022 state qualified allocation plan for low-income housing tax credits. That plan lays out the policy and the selection criteria that KHC uses to award low-income housing tax credits to projects. That plan was voted on and voted to be adopted by the board. It has since been sent to the governor for his signature, and he has signed the plan. And so that plan is now in effect for 2021-2022 low-income housing tax credits. Following that action, it was necessary for the corporation to make some designations of facsimile signatory authority for Fannie Mae loans. This is important for our single family lending division of the corporation to conduct business. That motion was passed. And the final item of action during that meeting was to authorize, Jim, you may have to help me on this, on the explanation of this, but it was to allow the corporation to withdraw from the debt service fund of the General Housing Revenue Bond Resolution to effectuate a redemption of variable rate demand obligations. As I understand it, we have some lending out there that is on variable rate, and we could have taken some action corporately to get us out of that variable rate debt that was seeing interest rates escalate at a rapid pace on a day-to-day basis, given the COVID-19 crisis and the impact it was having on the economic markets. But we didn't have the proper authority in place at the time to allow us to shift that over to a fixed rate financing structure quickly to save the corporation money. Jim, did I explain that well? And do you have anything to add?
Just a couple things. The municipal bond market was going absolutely haywire just before this executive committee meeting. And we were in danger of some of our variable rate bonds going from 0.5% to 21% interest rate. And unless those bonds were put to us, we were not able to voluntarily, if you will, pay those bonds off if we didn't want to pay the 21%. This authorization gives either myself or Lisa the authority to pay those bonds off so that we don't have to suffer through those really very high interest rates that we were seeing that particular week. Since then, with the Fed's action and a lot of other actions by Treasury and the Fed, that market has settled down, although it is still pretty volatile, but the rates are back down under 1%. So, but having this in our back pocket will allow us to act if rates were to go haywire again and us get stuck with bonds at real high interest rates. The highest our bonds got was 6%. The week before they were under 1%, and then they've retreated back under 1% in the last week or so. So that's what that did.
Thank you, Jim. And following that, the meeting was adjourned. So that would conclude the report from the executive committee meeting for March 30th.
Thank you, Jeremy. Anybody have any questions about that? If not, moving forward, Tracy.
Thank you, Chairman Summers. I've got one bond resolution for you all today. This is an updated final resolution for Ashland Bond Portfolio for the issuance of bonds. The Ashland Bond Portfolio received a final resolution October 31st, 2019, with a deadline for issuance of May 31st, 2020. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which has caused negative changes in the financial markets, the portfolio has requested a change in the bond structure from public offering to a private placement, as well as a change to the bond issuance deadline date from May 31st, 2020 to August 31st, 2020. So essentially this change was market driven. The portfolio is requesting bonding authority in an amount not to exceed $34 million. The project involves the acquisition and rehab of 3 existing apartment complexes in Ashland, Kentucky, with a total of 462 units. They will serve 30% AMI or below, 50% AMI or below, 60% and 80% or below AMI. You can see on the screen the development team involved in this project, and KHC staff recommends approval.
All right. Tracy, has has our current situation affected this project at all, or is it?
Yeah, so I believe when they initially underwrote this project, they were projecting a certain amount of funds coming from those bond proceeds, and that has since changed. So they need to change the way they're structuring this, where a private placement will put some more money into the deal. I don't foresee any other projects right now that were in the pipeline experiencing this level of issues. They essentially had a pretty big gap, and they're just trying to correct it. But yes, it's definitely the result of the market.
So, I guess going forward, is there a motion to continue to approve this?
We'll have to unmute everybody.
This is Phil Moffitt. I move for passage.
Thank you, Mr. Moffitt.
Winston Miller, I'm second.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Jeremy, as we move forward, we got Mr. Statler up next.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and happy birthday, Tracy.
Thank you, Jim.
Before you is an agenda item, which is a routine. Every year we request authorization to enter into personal service contracts with various real estate agents throughout the Commonwealth to assist us in liquidating our REOs. We have a list of 28 realtors that we have used in the past and recommend using in fiscal 21. What this generally does is we enter into what I call an umbrella servicing personal service contract with each of the agencies so that they are in our approved agency group of realtors. And then as properties become available and need to be sold, then we enter into specific listing contracts with the agencies that are geographically closest with an agency, I should say, that are geographically close to where the property is. So these agents are spread out all over the Commonwealth. There's 28 that are on the list that accompanied the mail out. 14 of them are women-owned or managed, and at least one we know is minority, although that agency does not claim minority management or ownership, but we are aware that is minority-owned or managed. The total amount of these contracts are set up to not exceed $400,000. We don't expect to come close to that. The normal listing contract is 6%, like it is for any other real estate contract. And we don't anticipate having that many REOs going forward into fiscal 21. So anyway, this is routine, and it does get these agents queued up to be our real estate agents when we have REOs that need to be liquidated.
You say we have one minority-owned agency out of 28?
That's what I am told. Yes, sir.
Can we get more? Have we tried to get more?
We can try to get more. Yes, sir.
I would think that, I don't know what percentage that represents, but I would think that we would want a little bit better representation from minority-owned real estate companies if we could.
I agree.
I'll see to it.
What about gender diversity?
You said, what'd you say, 14 women owned?
Yeah, half of them are women owned or managed.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll work on that, Mr. Chairman. Definitely.
But I want us to work on it, but I want it to get better. I'm not looking for a best efforts kind of thing here. I want to make sure that we do better in that category.
Understood.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
Well, Phil Moffitt here. I make a motion that we postpone voting on this until we've had a better opportunity to change the list to be more representative.
Jim, if we do that, does that put us in any? Are we in any need of work from one of these that we need now, that we need to have a vote and we need to do this now?
Well, we wouldn't be able to place any listing agreements after June 30th or starting July 1st unless we have a list of agents that we can use.
It's July 30th, you said, Jim?
Excuse me? You
said July 30th?
No, June 30th. It's a fiscal year re-upping, so to speak. So this would be for contracts that we would want to enter into after starting July 1st for fiscal 21.
And we have a board meeting in May, correct?
Yes.
Does that give you enough time if we vote in May?
We will do it.
Good deal. Thank you.
Okay.
I made a motion to postpone. Do we need to go through the process?
Do we need to do that, or can we just postpone and you bring it back to us in the May meeting?
If we could, Mr. Chairman, if we could go ahead and go through a motion in a second and then have the board vote to table it until the next meeting, please.
All right.
I'll second it. This is George C.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, Jim.
Sure.
Jeremy?
Yes, sir. It's back to me. So the next item on the agenda is to do a contract with McBrayer PLLC to provide legal services related to the Unemployment Bridge Program for fiscal years 2020 and 2021. This is coming out of a response to the COVID-19 crisis. Some of you may recall that at one point in time, KHC was conducting a program called the Unemployed Bridge Program, which was funded by federal dollars from the Troubled Asset Relief Program funds, the TARP funds. That program started, I believe, in about 2010 or 2011. And it was a program that provided a line of credit to people who had a mortgage loan and experienced a decrease in income in excess of 15%. That line of credit was used to pay their mortgage until they had the opportunity to get their income back up. Most of those folks had lost their job. They were fully unemployed when they went into the program. The line of credit was used to pay their mortgage until they were rehired. Once their income came back up, then the loan was no longer making the payment for their mortgage. And at that point, as long as the borrower remained in their home for a 5-year period of time, that loan was forgiven 20% each year. So as long as that was their principal residence for 5 years, they never had to pay the line of credit back. It was federal dollars that were funneled through KHC, and all of the costs related to that program were paid out of those federal dollars, including legal fees to law firms to handle closings and some very light title verification for those loans. That program sunset in 2018. There were still some administrative things that were going on with that program to wind it down. And that was primarily, we had borrowers who received loans in 2018. And so they had 5 years for those to be forgiven. And then at the point in time they're forgiven, KHC had to release the mortgage that was securing that loan. So we had approximately 20 million. Is that correct, Jim? 20 million?
20 million. There was 20 million of program
dollars of these funds were still at KHC and had not been returned to the federal government. They were due to be returned soon, But when COVID-19 struck and the pandemic started affecting the economy, we were contacted by the Treasury Department to revive this program for the COVID-19 situation. I believe it is expected to go through the end of this calendar year at this point in time, but who knows what may happen along the way if COVID-19 stretches out longer. That contact from Treasury was an ask that this thing be started back up immediately. And so we have to have a law firm on contract to handle those matters for us. All of those fees are paid out of those federal dollars. They are flat rate, $250 per closing. That includes everything. And the law firm will pay costs related to that out of their own pocket for the most part, out of the $250. McBrayer was the last law firm involved in those closings with us. So they were involved most recently, and they are most readily available to get that stood up immediately for us. And so once we were asked for that, we reached out to McBrayer to see if they felt they were able to pick that up immediately and carry on those duties. The people we were working with at the time that it sunset in 2018 were all still at McBrayer, and so they were ready to go. And so we are asking for the board to authorize a contract with McBrayer for an amount not to exceed $500,000. That is $250 per closing. And based on the funds we have on hand, we estimate that we would be able to do a total of about 2,000 loans. So that's where the $500,000 comes from. We're asking for the contract is drafted effective April 1. And so we have a little bit of a different sort of process with this contract, and we are doing the procurement. There's some emergency provisions that are in the procurement code in Kentucky. We are following the procurement code. We have done all of the documentation to document the need and the emergency nature of the contract, and that we are effectively begging forgiveness instead of asking permission a little bit on this contract, but it's based on a request by the federal government, and we felt that the need was necessary to do that. So we are asking for the authorization to enter into the contract. It would be effective April 1, and it would end June 30th of 2021. So it's covering two different fiscal years for us. It would cover the remainder of 2020 and then run through the end of next fiscal year.
Jeremy, the only I think that McBrayer should be able to do this for in my opinion, to the remainder of this fiscal year. But then we need to put an RFP out there, and they can do it for whoever gets it for the next. You know, that would be my only possible concern. I'm doing it for two. I'm doing this for 2 fiscal years now. I understand the rush for this fiscal year, but we can, for the following fiscal year, if we put an RFP out and McBrayer wins, then they do it. But if somebody else comes in and they win it, maybe we do it that way. Is there a problem with doing it that way?
We can do it that way.
I mean, yeah. I'm looking for the board. I mean,
do you see an issue with that from an operational standpoint with that program?
Just say you got to be up and ready to do it by July 1st if we're going to put it in the second fiscal year.
Right.
Well, I'm saying, for the remainder of this fiscal year, we don't have time for an RFP. So you go back to McBrayer and say, hey, we need you to do it to this, but then for the following fiscal year, that's just me. I mean, the other board members will have. I wanted to get some more input on that as well.
My inclination is to agree with that, Chairman Summers. I think that would be preferable. This is what we get some sort of scrutiny by the legislature contract committee, and particularly given the fact that we're doing this retroactively, and I understand why. but they're very sensitive to those retroactive contracts. And then if we're extending it out into the next year, I think that's a double reason that it'll draw some criticism.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Gail, were you about to say something?
Yes, I absolutely agree with that we get some RFPs next year.
Okay, so I guess I need an amended motion to approve McBrayer to be able to do this through the end of this fiscal year, and then an RFP to be sent out to decide who will ultimately be doing it for the following fiscal year.
This is Phil Moffitt. I make the motion to pass.
Thank you, Mr. Moffitt. Is there?
Gail
This is
Lively,
George
I
C. I'll
second.
second it.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion?
Jeremy, this is Tammy Whitinger. Do I need to abstain from this since Brighton Center is one of the organizations that will be?
Yes, just it really doesn't affect you, but just out of an abundance of caution, it'd be best if you did.
Okay. So
So noted.
Thank you, Tammy. All right. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you. That is the last of our items on the agenda, Chairman.
Let me. Any of the executive officers have anything, or Lisa, you have anything else, or any board member have anything that you want to discuss?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only other thing I was going to say is that we will be holding the Finance Committee meeting on Thursday, May 21st at 10 o'clock. And the Finance Committee will go into detail and review the budget that we will then bring to the full board at the next board meeting, which is at 2 o'clock on Thursday, May 28th. I think most of you already have that on your calendar. It was a previously regularly scheduled board meeting. And the main focus of that meeting will be to go over the budget for fiscal year 2021, which begins in July. Additionally, the chairman's in the process of signing the letters to do the new committee appointments with all the board members. So you'll be getting those probably in the next week or so from us, so that every board member will have a committee to serve on. So we'll get those as soon as the chairman gets them back to us.
We're gonna try to keep everybody busy. Any other things to be discussed? If not, thanks for everybody being here. Continue to be safe, and hopefully we'll get to interact in person soon.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.